Trixie's getting back on her hooves. Chapter 8. Clean Slate. Twilight smiled, putting books back on their cells. A little peace and quiet is always nice, she said, smiling lightly. I'm all for friendship, but every pony needs their alone time, she continued, sliding the last book back into its place. She wondered when Spike and Trixie would be back from their errands. She expected Spike would be back first, since Trixie had another stop at Sweet Apple Acres, and taking Rainbow's letter wouldn't take that long. She heard the door swing open and loud, echoing footsteps. She recognized the distinctive sound of more high-class horseshoes hitting the floor. Shoes none of her friends wore. She only heard them at Camelot. Oh, hello there, the purple mare said, then finally saw her guest. The cold, calculating eyes staring back sent a chill down her spine. Welcome to the library. The mare's eyes practically searched her. Twilight didn't like it one bit. It made her feel like a manuscript being read for errors. That wasn't as fun as the experience sounded. I'm Twilight Sparkle. Unicorn's cold eyes met her own, making her begin to sweat as she looked back nervously. She felt like she was being silently judged for something, and the mare's eyes just made her feel completely uneasy. I'm sure it's a pleasure. I'm looking for a book. Technology of Equestria. A Brief History. Do you have it? Twilight nodded, but barely avoided cringing at some quality in her voice. No, not something in her voice. Something that wasn't in it, but she couldn't tell what it was. Yes, right this way, she said, leading the way upstairs, glad to break eye contact with her intimidating visitor. She looked around the room carefully for the book in question. You guys ever stop and think that if Starlight's redemption was anything like Trixie's getting back on her hooves, a lot less people would complain? Ah, here it is, the purple unicorn said, pulling the book from the shelf and turning, finding her visitors and analytic eyes scanning the room. Resting on a section briefly, then moving to the next. It reminded Twilight of a camera taking photos. The blue mare finally turned to Twilight, and her horn glowed a deep violet as she floated the book over to herself. The mare leafed through the book and found a page, then scanned it as neighboring page with the exact same precision she had the room. Ah, here we are, she said, then folded the book over to Twilight. Just needed to clarify something. Twilight nodded, finding herself desperately trying to avoid eye contact as she took the book back and placed it back in its proper place. The purple unicorn turned to find the mare, watching her with those analytic eyes. Well, will that be all? Yes, the visitor answered. Good night, and goodbye, and have a nice night, she said, turning and walking out. Goodbye, Twilight answered, watching her leave. She heard her stop in the main room for a second, and then the door slammed shut. Twilight exhaled loudly. Who was that? She asked, giving a shudder. So, you earned your cutie mark because of how Granny Smith helped found Ponyville? Asked Twilight, looking rather surprised to see Trixie sat in the library before bed. She was glad to have Trixie back so she could get her mind off of that intimidating mare from before. Trixie nodded in response, but looking preoccupied. Trixie was quite surprised by herself, Twilight, the mare reported. Trixie means who could imagine such a thing? Trixie having a connection with the town where she became a laughingstock, not to mention one of those she publicly humiliated. Twilight gave a thoughtful look, thinking long and hard about what was said. Hey, could you tell me your cutie mark story? Trixie blinked in surprise. Trixie's cutie mark story? Well, Trixie supposes she could, she said, showing a little bit of her natural pride at being the center of attention. She wasn't a straight fright stricken filly anymore. No, she's back to being Trixie. Miss Monarch, said Healthy Huff, climbing up over the hill to Pineville to his boss. I've got the dresses you wanted, he reported, handing the list via telekinesis. Checker took them with her own telekinesis and looked them over with her ever-analytic eyes. Her mane was still messed up slightly, but overall her composure was normal. Yes, these will do, she said simply, pocketing him. Now come. I want to know what Trixie's plans for tomorrow are. Pony rich, said Rover, looking fearfully at his boss. Why pony no use money to ruin other ponies' life? He was beginning to think he and his packmates had gotten in over their heads. Unfortunately, he was also beginning to think Checker meant every word she said before about what she'd do if they crossed her. Checker scoffed. You semi-sentient brute. You don't know the first thing about running a business, do you? Ruining Trixie is something I thoroughly want to do, but it's not worth the time and money to do some business cases to do it. Do it like this. The only money I lose is the gems I throw at you three nitwits, and I've got plenty more where they came from. Doing this to Trixie is more of a hobby, really. I've been doing this since we were kids. It's how I earned my cutie mark. So he said, talking about it like it was an actual hobby, sending a chill down Diamond Dog's spines. I'll only put real money into it if I can get some money out of it, and then it's just a bonus. After the story was finished, and Trixie ended her illusionary presentation, more than one thing seemed familiar about Trixie's story to Twilight, but one in particular stood out. Wait, so you were inspired by the Sun Sun celebration at Camelot when you were a filly? Asked Twilight. Eyes wide as realization hit her. Trixie nodded. Yes, it was the inspiration for Trixie to pursue stage magic. The mayor replied, looking at Twilight with surprise. Oh, what's wrong? Spike, get me my special events in Equestria. Dates, places, and times book, please. Twilight requested, a slight urgency in her voice. Spike nodded and headed to find the book, as Trixie blinked. Is there any occasion you don't have a book for, Twilight Sparkle? She asked, giving Twilight a surprised look. If there is, I haven't come across it. Here you go, Spike. Here you go, Twilight, said Spike, handing Twilight the book. This was bigger than he was. Twilight flipped through the book to the Summer Sun Celebration section and scanned it quickly. Dizzy gasped, It's just as I thought. Trixie came over and looked at it with a blink. Oh, what is it, Twilight? Trixie, where the Summer Sun Celebration is held changes every year in a cycle. It was only held at Camelot once during our fullhoods. Trixie raised an eyebrow. And, Trixie, I was inspired to go into magic when I went into the Summer Sun Celebration in Camelot as a filly. Trixie gasped in shock, checking the book, then back to Twilight, then back to the book, back to Twilight, about 3 times in rapid succession. It took her a few moments to get her composure back. To the Twilight. I have a connection to you and Applejack. It's unbelievable. Twilight couldn't help but give a small chuckle. Oh, what's so funny? It's not nearly as unbelievable as you think. Twilight replied, trying over a shelf filled with scrolls. She pulled out a scroll and opened it. Friendship Lesson 23. Today I learned something amazing. Every pony everywhere has a special magical connection with their friends, maybe even before they met them. You're feeling lonely and searching for your true friends? Just look up to the sky. Who knows? Maybe you and your future best friends are looking at the same rainbow. Trixie gave a gag. That is one of the most cheesy things Trixie has ever heard. Spike chuckled. That's what I said. Trixie then blinked as she actually thought about it. So, you're saying that Trixie may have had a special connection to you six, because we were destined to be friends one day. Twilight nodded. Well, sort of. Destiny might be a strong word, but I think it's easier to connect to someone if you got a pre-existing connection to your past. She explained, giving a smile. Rainbow Dash is the only Pegasus to ever perform the Sonic Rainbow. That's how she earned her cutie mark. But when she did that, the shockwaves triggered the events that caused me, Fluttershy, Applejack, Rarity, and Pinkie Pie to all earn our cutie marks at the same time. It led Twilight to hatch me, and Spike chimed in. Twilight smiled and nodded to Spike. Ours was probably a very special case because, well, you were destined to wield the elements of harmony, defeat Nightmare Moon, and to save Equestria from Nighttime Eternal. Twilight blushed slightly. Yeah, there's that. But the point is, it's not impossible for a group of friends to share a connection like we do. It just means we've got a common background that binds us together. Trixie gave a small smile. Yes, Trixie supposes we do. Checker snuck up on the library. Hiss the villain, people! Hiss! Alright, be quiet. I need silence. Eavesdropping spells require it, she said, concentrating her horn, glowing its dark violet as the words on the other side of the walls she was standing on became clear to her mind. Regardless, Trixie is rather happy to have finally made amends with her rainbow Tess, said Trixie, smiling, but then gave a sad, unsure look. Twilight quickly returned a concerned gaze to the unicorn mare. Trixie, what's wrong? You've looked pretty distracted this whole time. Trixie sighed. Twilight, Trixie is sure you've probably thought of it already, she said. The town's ponies. Twilight nodded grimly in response. I have. Which is why I've tried to keep you from being seen as much as possible. You know, I had a thought about why the town probably was more accepting to Trixie than than Starlight was less accepting to Trixie than Starlight in the actual canon. Nobody knew! Twilight never told any pony. The only ones who knew are the village. To the rest of the town, I have a feeling they're like, oh, Twilight has a new student? Yeah, okay. Trixie has evidence. Trixie nodded. Trixie knows they might not all be as forgiving as you are, but Trixie realized something today. She's going to get back on her hooves. Then she best like to slate clean. After all, how could she rise back up if every pony but you seven still hates her? Twilight put a hoof on her shoulder. But Trixie, it wasn't your fault you're so attacked. It was Sniffs and Snails who ordered the town. Because of the lie Trixie told, replied Trixie, guilt to her face. Trixie lied, and because of that lie, those two cults brought the Ursa Minor to town. While Trixie never intended it to happen, she still had a hoof in it. And regardless, the town still blames Trixie. I just want a fresh start, Twilight. I see the world through new eyes. I want to make the best use of that I can. Besides, how do you suppose I get along in this town, or any other that's heard about it for that matter, if everyone hates me for something I did? Wouldn't it make more sense for me to earn forgiveness so I can move on with my life? Twilight gave her a thoughtful look, then nodded, knowing Trixie was serious when she first used the first person. Spike looked understanding as Trixie spoke. He looked down sadly. All right, what do you want to do? Twilight asked, putting a hoof on Trixie's shoulder. The best thing would be to apologize to the entire town at once, would it not? Publicly. Twilight nodded, but wasn't so sure. I suppose I could probably get Mayor Mare to set it up. Trixie would like that. Oh, this is perfect, stated Checker, turning from the library, an icy sneer on her face. They're doing half my job for me. How perfect, she said, leading the group along. Now, all I need to do is stir up the flames and get things ready. She continued thoughtfully. All right, Helping Hoof. We'll need a copier to make flyers, then hand them out to every pony in town, especially those on this list you gave me. But not any pony who is affiliated with those 6, and especially not those 6. Understood? Helping Hoof nodded, cowering her gaze, then hanging off to follow her bidding. Yes, Miss Monarch. Why ponies so scary? Asked Spot to his packmates, giving a stare. It's a gift, said Checker, looking over his shoulder, giving him an icy glare, causing him to cower and back away, whimpering. Ponies tend to be quite intimidated by my eyes. It's quite useful when it comes to manipulating them. So he explained, then looked back towards town. Better get your sleep, Trixie, said the insidious mare, giving a cold smirk. Tomorrow will be the show of a lifetime. The two both got into their respective beds, preparing for bed. Trixie? Twilight said, clicking up the blue mare. You sure you really want to do this? I mean, there's probably another way. You got no reason to apologize for something you didn't do. Twilight, please. Let Trixie do this. To both mares' surprise, it wasn't Trixie that said it. Spike! They both asked at the same time. Spike looked sadly at Twilight. I know how she feels. Twilight blinked. They realized something with a gasp. Spike, that wasn't your fault. You couldn't. Exactly. I couldn't control myself. That's why it happened. Just like Trixie lied. That's why the Ursa ended up attacking. We might not have done anything wrong in your eyes, and I'm glad. But we still messed up and did something we shouldn't have been doing in the first place. That caused Ponyville to get wrecked. Spike said, care in her eyes. Trixie blinked. Trixie is lost. What are you talking about? Twilight tried to speak up, but Spike shook his head and let down. Did you hear about that giant dragon that attacked Ponyville a few months ago? I'm sorry, guys. For some odd reason in my head, I just came up with this idea of him shooting stars to do a side segment of Vex and Trinket meeting up with the Ursa Minor. I'm sorry. It just came to my head. Oh, by the way, Fox Machina voice actors showing up in MLP? More common than you may think. Laura Bailey was somewhere in G5. Trixie scratched her head. Trixie believes she read something of the sort on the newspaper she was using for a pillow. What of it? Spike's eyes missed up at the memory. That was me. Trixie blinked, not seeing how it was possible. You? Spike climbed up and sat down next to her, looking down. It was my birthday. It was the first birthday where I'd gotten tons of presents from every pony. Twilight never gives me a book. Trixie expects as much, said Trixie, causing Twilight to blush from embarrassment. It felt so cool. It felt great to get all those things. Really great. Trixie knows the appeal. The gifts the showman receives have a certain appeal when your father gives you gifts based solely on how much you earn in his own eyes. But I'm a dragon. Trixie's not following. Spike sighed and looked down. To a dragon, getting all those things felt so great. I never felt anything like it. The more I got gifts, and I liked it more and more. I just had to have more. I couldn't resist it. It wasn't me wanting things. It was like I needed things. And not like ponies say they need something. It felt more like there was a pin in me, trying to fill it with everything I could get my claws on. Spike looked like he was actually going to cry, so Twilight stepped in for a moment. Trixie, dragons have a natural instinct to create their own horde. When Spike got all those things, it awakened his natural greed. I don't know if what happened next is normal for dragons. Ponies don't start fearing little about him. I only figured out what was happening to him by going to Sakura. She told me later she wasn't considered the normal for all dragons, or just some condition that affects some dragons. Spike closed his eyes, thinking back. I started to grow really fast. I went from how I usually am to a teenager overnight. The need I got was so much worse. It started to become the only thing I could think about. The more I grew, the worse it got, until I can't even remember. That's the scariest part. I don't remember half of what I did, he said, his voice cracking, little tears formed in his eyes. I turned into a monster. I tore apart Ponyville. I hurt every pony I care about. I can't remember any of it. I didn't even recognize Rarity. Me, not knowing who she was, she couldn't recognize me anymore. Twilight climbed up the ladder and sat on Spike's other side, pulling the baby dragon clung close to her like a mother comforting a child, and she couldn't contain his tears anymore. She didn't know what to tell him. It hurt. She'd been Spike his entire life. He was family. Somewhere between a mother, brother, and a son. It tore apart to seem like this. Twilight looked up to Trixie. Spike gave Rarity a fire ruby he had been growing specifically for his birthday meal. She wanted it, dear Celestia she did, but she couldn't bring herself to ask him for it. She knew it meant a lot for him. He gave it to her anyway, his own special gift, without even being asked. And when Spike was a giant dragon and tried to take it from her, she told him how much it meant to her, because Spike had given it to her. She didn't even know how it was Spike. The only reason anybody knows is because they both said it when it was all said and done. She still said that. Reminded Spike of how good it felt to give the ruby to her, make her happy. Let's reverse the process. Yeah, instead of almost flying to our deaths, Spike muttered, after crying into Twilight's chest while she spoke. He gave her a grateful look before continuing. I know I couldn't control myself, but I let myself be controlled by my greed. It was my fault. Everybody else was just being nice. So yeah, I know how you feel when you say you feel guilty for the Ursa attacking Ponyville. Trixie was speechless. Trixie, she started, but couldn't think of what to say. So she put a hoof on his shoulder. And thank you for telling me. I know it wasn't the easiest thing in the world, but I have even less of an excuse than you do for what I did. You had the skills of being natural. I was merely being a liar. Spike nodded. You're welcome. I'm glad I helped, and thanks. For what? For giving those lessons on dealing with nightmares. I haven't been having nightmares for weeks about that, but thanks to you, they're gone. Thanks. Trixie smiled. You're welcome. The unicorn mare then gave me on. Trixie thinks we all need some rest. We've got a big day ahead of us tomorrow. Twilight nodded, then smiled to Spike as they climbed down. That was awfully nice of you, Spike. Well, how many ponies can I talk to that know how it feels to have let their mistakes nearly destroy Ponyville? Well, there was that time Rainbow Dance's ego almost caused the town to get flooded, and Fluttershy with a pair of sprites. And you aspire pets? Twilight blessed. Good point! With helping Huff and the Diamond Dogs enacting her plan, Checker Monarch approached the library and stood outside, as close as she could get to the room itself. You may know grandmother's little secret, Trixie, but that won't protect you. Your defense is my weapon. Checker concentrated, horn lighting up as she entered Trixie's dreams. Checker floated in a white void of a dream ready to form. She blinked for a moment before smirking. A white void is simply something that doesn't exist in real life. This is a dream. Trixie is a habit breaking. Trixie's dream, to be specific. Now she established that, she concentrated on her memories, assembling the library from a careful examination she made earlier today. She assembled a near perfect replica of the interior building, with the dream world fully formed. She took technology with question and sat down in a chair, opening it to a page she carefully analyzed earlier that day. She made sure to make a copy and slot upstairs and fans while she was at it. Trixie groaned, turning over in her bed. She looked around, finding Twilight wasn't there. Must have gotten early to go arrange things with Mayor Merrier. Trixie gave a deep breath, knowing what waiting for her today. It was weighing heavily on her mind. She headed down the stairs, then froze at the top of the stairs in terror as she saw the figure sitting at the table. Why, hello, little sister. Hero! Said Checker, looking up from the book, shutting it with a loud slam and laying on the table. A long time no see. Trixie broke out a cold sweat at the sight of the mayor. Checker, what are you doing here? She asked in shock, nearly toddling down the stairs. I heard you were in Ponyville. Thought I'd stop by to see if my worthless little sister had managed to get back on her hooves yet, Checker said, not a little bit of compassion in her voice. A cold, terrifying stare met Trixie's, near a glare that made Trixie begin trembling. And you haven't. Not that that's a surprise. Trixie growled, working out what nerves she could in the face of her sister's unnerving gaze. Something about Checker's stare, no matter how hard she tried, Trixie just couldn't help feeling intimidated just looking her in the eye. It reminded her of what little she had seen of the stare in the Everfree Forest. Still, Trixie managed to head down the stairs. Trixie is doing just fine. She's not on the street anymore, at least. Yes, she's accepting help, showing weakness, and generally being a complete disgrace to our family, Checker said, giving her sister a disappointed look, as usual. Trixie doesn't care what you or father say, Checker! Trixie yelled, snarling at her sister. Oh, really? Asked Checker, forcing Trixie to trot back. You don't care your own family has disowned you. Trixie gasped and looked down sadly. What? Asked the dirty, malnourished Trixie at the doorway of her father's mansion. Checker standing in the doorway, judgmental eyes staring down at her. You heard me, Trixie, Checker said, spitting at her name like it was venom. You are a failure, and no monarch is a failure. None of them. Look at yourself. You're a poor, worthless, filthy excuse of a pony that comes crawling in on her knees for help. What is the monarch's family take on receiving help? Trixie started crying. Well, accepting help is a sign of weakness. Checker gave an icy, cold smirk. Exactly, you worthless mare. Until you make something of yourself, don't you dare darken our doorway again. Not until you're a sun pony. If you're not a sun pony, then you're a no pony. Never forget that, Trixie. Checker picked up Trixie with telekinesis and literally threw her off the property into pouring rain. Now, get out of my sight, you worthless has-been. Trixie cringed as the door slammed. Tears flowed freely as he ran off into the starry night. Trixie tried to hold back her tears, but they still ran down her face. Checker gave an icy smirk. I thought so. Trixie snarled as tears rolled down her face. Get out. Get out! Trixie will get back on her hooves. She'll show you. Checker gave a bone-chilling chuckle. You really think this little show of yours is going to work? Trixie gasped. What do you mean? Checker got up and circled her sister. You think this town will accept you after what you did to it? And you'll say, I'm so sorry, and all will be forgiven. She asked in a calculating, icy tone. You brought in Ursa Minor to attack the town. Do you honestly think they care if it was an accident? Trixie started shaking with fear as her sister circled her. They will. Trixie's friends forgave her. Exactly. Your friends forgave you, Checker stated, and even then, only 3 who you did not harm entirely, and 2 who didn't trust you after they forgave you. The last one outright hated you. What makes you think a town that has only seen the Trixie who brought ruin upon them will forgive you for that? Are you really that naive? Trixie shook her head desperately. They'll understand. It was an accident. They'll forgive Trixie. Checker leaned in close, looking Trixie right in the eyes with an intense, terrifying glare. Trixie started trembling, fear surging through her body as she looked at her sister's glare. It took all her willpower not to let herself in blind terror, but still she couldn't look away. Face it, Trixie. They're normal ponies. They're not going to see a poor, down-on-her-luck mare. They're going to see the one who brought a monster to destroy their town, then ran away with her tail between her legs like a coward. Remember the other places you tried getting shows after the incident? The ones who merely heard about it. They pelted you with rotten tomatoes and booed you off the stage before you could even get a word in edgewise, didn't they? Checker kept her voice low and deliberate, and as cold as ice. Trixie tried to look away but couldn't. Answer me when I'm talking to you. Yes, Trixie stated, crying. So, what do you think the town who you actually hurt is going to do to you? Checker said, giving a twisted smirk as her sister broke down crying. If you get on stage tomorrow, you're a ruined mare. What little sister you have here will be ruined. Face it, Trixie. You're done.